Hello, everybody. It is Tuesday night at 9 p.m., and therefore it is time for Chiro Destiny, a little Tuesday Night Live with Rick and Brett. And tonight, I would say I'm going out there, Brett. I'm saying it's the most important thing that chiropractors need help with, that they don't know they need help with, that we are really, really, really good at. And I think it's just a fun topic, super important for everybody. So let's hit them with it.
All right, so tonight's topic is going to be improving your patient retention. We think it's probably one of the most important topics out there. Probably, I would say to some degree, misunderstood quite a bit as a profession-wide, that is. We stress it so much with our members, and I think, the average PVA is pretty solid in our group. But in terms of the profession, I think it really needs some work, without a doubt. I think many chiropractors are so focused on more new patients, so important, which is true. But it's so important to retain the ones that you have, especially if you're trying to build a practice of your dream in terms of how you define what's best for you. And if you can learn the different skill sets to do that, because to me, retention or PVA, patient visit average, we'll define that in a moment. We'll talk about how to figure it out. But knowing what that number is, it's just a clear representation of who you are and what your practice is. So that's what we're going to focus on for tonight. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I would venture to guess we've never met a chiropractor who said, I can't wait to get 80 new patients a month and have them come 6 times or 10 times and then quit my practice and never get adjusted again for as long as they live.
Yep.
And yet so many practices are like that they focus so much on their marketing effort, which is amazing. And then they spend no time internally on their philosophy of retention, their systems and their action steps on retention. And then they don't get the results they want and they wonder why. They don't focus on it properly and they really don't know how to do it properly. So why don't we start with the philosophy of retention, just the headspace action of it, of what's the difference between someone that just focuses on new ones and really doesn't work on what it takes to have high retention and high PVA versus the other way around?
Well, I think a big part of it is first you have to define exactly what you want your practice to be. Forget about what it currently is, right? Because it's just a clear representation of your thinking, your skill set, your communication skills, and your ability to build rapport with patients. So if it's not where you want it to be, then those have to be addressed. So the first question is what do I want? What do I want my practice to be like? What's my philosophy? What's the philosophy of the practice? What does it need to be? Typically, when I ask when I ask a member, especially a newer member, about how they want to practice, we always coin the phrase, the practice of your dreams. But what's your ideal practice look like? Most people, the answer that I get back, typically 90-95%, I'm sure you do as well, is I want some kind of wellness maintenance practice. I want people to come to me over their lifetime. Okay, great. Then we start to dig a little bit deeper and we see their retention or PVA is really about 6, 8, 10, 12, 15. And that really is an acute care practice, which means they come for a period of time, they get out of pain over a few visits, whatever that might be, and then they disappear. Or someone has an insurance-only practice. But if you look at the people who have a hybrid practice, which is what I have, it's about 70% cash, 30% insurance. I'm in New York. I was forced into this in a way 20 years ago, right? So the insurance kept dwindling, basically went away. And so it became more of a cash practice. And I had to learn how to communicate with patients. And I had to really look inside and say, what do I really want? How can I create this? So the philosophy is first, you have to get clear about who you are and what it is that you want. And then we start with that.
So listen, you and I, we're not very good at talking about our own practices, right? And quite frankly, of all the people that listen to us and all of our fans, if you will, I don't even know if they know we're still in practice.
Right.
But I'm looking at the shirts we're wearing, and that means we just got done with our practice day. Yeah. So when it comes to retention, without divulging whatever you don't want to, but what's your PVA? You've been in practice 28 years.
Yeah. So my PVA hovers between 80 and 90. When I have certain associates that may be newer, so it's a little bit lower. If we look at collectively, my personal PVA is close to 90. Our practice PVA typically runs, we average between 80 and 90. So PVA means, in essence, the number of times a patient comes to you technically over their lifetime. And the way to measure it is you take your average number of office visits divided by the average number of new patients.
Right, but that's not a month-to-month number. That's
it's accumulated
number. You've got to do that over a long period of time.
So you could even
over
take
your last
year,
12 months.
Right, exactly. So even if you took year to date, you could do it that way. But ideally, when we work with our members, they send us stats on a monthly basis, and that's an ongoing accumulated number. Sometimes it's over months and months and months. And for people who have been with us 5, 10 years or so, it's over a number of years. And the longer you do it, calculated at, the more accurate it becomes. But just doing it 1 month, you can have a high number of new patients just that month, and it takes a while for the people to get under care and use and so forth. So
and my PVA has been 60 for years and years and years. I'm in practice. January is 25 years for me. And the goals that we set are pretty clear. And we know that based on the amount of retention or the PVA, it speaks volumes as to not only what the doctor's philosophy is on what they want, but also, like you said, their rapport building skill, their communication skill, and how well they train their team. So let's dive into it a little bit, and let's talk about the whole team concept, because I believe that people think, well, I just have to say, okay, I'm the doctor, I'm the one doing the report of findings, and I'm the one doing the adjusting, so it's really all up to me. And it's not.
No, not even close.
Because your CA is the one that answers the phone and welcomes a patient. Your CA is the one that schedules somebody 3 times a week or twice a week or once every other week, or does the care plans or locks down the care plans or does the recalls. So much of this has to do with the CAs.
Absolutely.
And sometimes the patients have such good rapport and relationship with the CAs that they might think the doctors, sort of white bread and mayonnaise is, could be better, could be worse. But they love the office atmosphere and they love the people that work there. And that keeps them around longer. You have no idea. Maybe it's because you have a special technique. Maybe it's a technology. Maybe it's your office hours. You're open on Saturdays and no one else is. There's a million reasons why people stay. That's why it has to be a global concept.
Absolutely. So team training is vitally important. They need to understand the concepts. They need to understand your philosophy. They understand your purpose, your mission, your vision of the practice. And then they need the skill set. They need how to understand how to build rapport. They need to understand. Now, we talk about scripts, but I tread lightly because even though we provide scripts for our members and we teach scripting, we don't teach it like it's robotic and it's got to be verbatim. Right. It's just about knowing what to say, in what context, who to say it to, but more importantly is understanding the person in front of you and understanding what's going on with them and meeting the patient where they are, but then bringing them along this continuum of understanding is first, listen, we want to get you out of pain. We want to correct the problem. Then we want to maintain it. But beyond that, it's really about their health. And when patients begin to understand the global big picture of that, but that has to be provided for your staff. If your staff doesn't understand what you're doing in the office, it's very difficult for them then to turn around and help you train the patient. And that's what.
And to try to be a little more concrete, here's what we recommend: is every single staff person, every teammate in the office should be a patient. They need to fill out paperwork. They need to get a consult examination X-ray. They need to get an ROF. They need to get a care plan, and they should be under care so they know what's happening when the other patients are getting their care. This is what they went through as well.
And they go through it exactly like the patient. The same way. So every new member that comes on board with us, that is part of the process. They get evaluated, they get X-rays, they get scans, everything. We do a mock, financial, so they understand it, but they go through it as well. No ifs, ands, and even the patient education, we do exactly with them as well. Plus, during your weekly staff meetings, and they should be weekly, we recommend Mondays, right? That should be part of the ongoing training. It's all the time. You and I have been in practice for many, many years, and we still do staff training every single week. It doesn't matter. Train and train and train some more, because when they're better trained and they know what to do and say, it makes a world of difference. And everybody.
The other thing I don't want to blow by is you said what I think is one of the key misunderstood ingredients, which is meet patients where they are.
Yes. So
the analogy I've always given is you're walking in the city and you see down a dark alley. And that typical, scary back there, you hear these bottles clanging and one of your best friends yells to you, "Hey, Brett, come on down." And you're looking like, I'm not walking down there, right? So here you are. the patient may think chiropractic is the scariest thing in the world. They have no preconceived notion. They see it as this real scary long hallway or alleyway. And here you are as the nice, friendly doctor saying, it's okay, Mrs. Jones, come down to my street. You're like, no freaking way.
Right.
But if you, as the doctor, come down through the dark alley and say toe to toe, knee to knee, Mrs. Jones, you're safe. I've got you. This is what this is. We're explaining it every step of the way. And they're educated. You meet them where they are and you walk them safely down the road of understanding what chiropractic is, especially what it is in your office, how you're going to reevaluate them, how you're going to monitor their progress, what the finances are in advance. So there's no secrets. And now you're starting to build rapport, a connection that not only will last a lifetime, but when a patient has that level of experience, which is our next thing, that level of experience is what builds humongous practices.
Absolutely. So before a patient even arrives, and I don't want to get too crazy on the details just because in the interest of time, but you have to make sure that everything you do in your practice is congruent with what you want your message to be. Your website. So when a patient first sees that for the very first time, if you want to be more of a wellness, health type of practice, then that's what they should get from your website. Now, if you said to us, listen, I love acute care pain. That's all I want. That's my model. If it's congruent for you, I have no problem with that whatsoever. My experience has been in talking to chiropractors, they want a better, bigger model. They want to expand it. They want patients to be under lifetime wellness care, but yet everything says acute care. So if there's an incongruency, I think Pat Gemtempo always said your practice can only grow up to the level of the incongruency. So you have to look at your website. What's the message from an outside observer? When you walk into your practice, your forms, things on the wall, how your CAs are greeting your patients, what things are being said, what is the image that's being projected?
All matters.
All has to say the same thing. So there is congruency leading up to the first visit, and I think it's important. Now I want to segue into, we're going to talk about the 4 PDA skills. And so again, not getting into every single detail, but let's start with really the first day. And we're not going to get into everything about day 1 and day 2, but I think we hit the highlights. And I think starting with, as you mentioned, is first meeting the patient where they are, right?
Well, all right. So let's just call a spade, okay? Docs, your consults are going way too long and are redundant and unnecessary. You have the patient fill out all this paperwork. And on that paperwork, it asks them the old OPQRST. Right. What's the symptoms? Why are you here? All that, what makes it better? What makes it worse? All that stuff. You go in and meet a new patient. You say, hi, Mrs. Jones. And then you start asking them the exact same questions that they just did 25 minutes of paperwork for. That is not what your consult is for. There are 3 main things that you want to know in the consult that is never going to be on the paperwork that gives you everything you want to get. And we're talking about rapport. So you have to understand their personality type. Are they a driver, analytical, amiable, or expressive? You've got to know that on day 1 so you can do a proper day 2. So, and we can help and teach you with Chiro Destiny, with our stuff, how to ascertain that and how to utilize it appropriately to connect and communicate. The second thing is to figure out what their core value is, which is by asking a simple question. What's this problem stopping you from being able to do in your life that you want to be able to do? Because chiropractors, you've been told a lie. You were told that people come to chiropractors because they're in pain. And that is not true. They come to you because the pain is stopping them from doing something that they want to be able to do. If they're in pain, but they could live their life, they're not coming. Because they could pop an Advil, they could deal with it, they could live with it, they could do a shot of Jack Daniels, whatever. But once their life is affected, now it has value for them to leave work, spend time, spend money, get radiated, get on your table, wait in your reception area, etc. And the third thing is you want to find out what their understanding of chiropractic is. So you ask them, why here, why now?
Right.
Why do you choose chiropractic? Because if they say, oh my God, I love chiropractic. I've been adjusted since I'm born. I just moved here from Seattle and I've been waiting to hook up with a new chiro. That's a different report of findings than, well, to be honest with you, I hate the fact that I'm here. I think you're a bunch of quacks, but my wife said I'm not allowed home until I stop bitching about my back. 2 different report of findings, isn't it? 2 different levels of communication. So if you can focus on those 3 things, and obviously you'll get the OPQRST from their paperwork, your consult's 5 to 7 minutes, you have instant rapport, and now you can focus on your examination and be thorough.
100%. I'm going to add one more thing.
Yes.
So we always typically end the consultation with, listen, Mrs. Jones, the object of today is to figure out what's causing your problem. So we want them to we want to get them reframed away from pain and start thinking about more about the nervous system as well as the bigger picture. So we start to say, the object of today is that we're going to find out what's the cause of your problem. We're going to do this, 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 and this, which is key. And then I'm going to tell them, basically, we have two choices. We can figure out what the cause of the problem is, and if you want to correct the cause, or you just want to get out of pain. And as we start to do that, we're starting to plant seeds and reframing them that there's a bigger picture, a bigger opportunity here. Again, we're still meeting them where they are. We understand a lot of times that pain brought them in, but now they understand that there's a cause, and do they want to correct the cause or just relieve the symptoms? And so again, we're starting to open them up to bigger possibilities because we want to get them to, hey, I want to correct the cause. That's the whole key.
Right. I love the fact that we move them from where they are to where we want them to start opening up, because if they start to think of cause equals nervous system, now you're not focused on symptoms and pain. Correct. You start focusing on function. As opposed to symptoms, or now you're already building a longer term.
So feeling versus function. The key is, how am I functioning versus how am I just feeling? Because we all know that you may not be functioning very well, right? And you're feeling fine. Happens all the time. That's why we encourage people to use the subluxation station, nerve scanning, any of those things that can measure function, which is so important. And that's how we typically do it.
We call it the 3 Fs.
Yep.
People start with how they feel.
Yep.
You transition them into how they function, and then we talk about how to maintain a healthy future.
Right, exactly. So it's future pacing them. So first we reframe them away from pain and onto function or the nervous system, right? And then we begin to future pace them along this continuum to get to wellness or maintenance care. Because you got to remember, not every patient's walking in saying, I want wellness or maintenance. Not every patient's walking in saying, yeah, can you fix my subluxations today, please? That's why I'm here. Right now, the more you start to educate the public about who you are, what you do in terms of this, you'll start to attract people who come in like that. We get that a lot, all the time, more and more now.
More and more.
Right? But not every patient's walking in that way. So great patients are not just born, they're created by you and your processes and your headspace and everything that you do in your practice. That's why it's so vital. And this is what we teach at Chiro Destiny. So we teach every one of our members, day 1 and day 2, staff training, how to put it all together, that whole be, do, have model to begin to create exactly what you want in practice.
Right. So let's say the first PVA skill is your day 1 and day 2. And in future calls, we'll do more and we'll detail day 2 better. Yep. The ROF, obviously key component. But as we've talked about before, we talked about with Daniel Bai a few weeks back, your day 1 is more important than day 2 all day long. Yep. You do a great day 1, day 2 is already taken care of.
Yep.
So all these, I had a newer doc today that I coached. He's brand new in practice. He opened yesterday.
Ooh, okay.
And just so excited, and he got 3 new patients in the first day. It's great. And I love hearing, after we've been around for so many years, the chiros are still coming out of school pumped up and excited. And I asked him how long his ROF is, and he said 40 minutes.
Ooh, okay.
And that was, and what I explained was, that was necessary when we were practicing, 80s, 90s, because still when I started in 95, I would say 75% of my new patients had never had a previous chiropractic experience.
Yep.
And now it's the other way around.
Right, exactly.
75% of your new ones or more have either had a chiropractic experience themselves, or they obviously know someone else who has. So it's not a question anymore of what do those chiros do. Right. They know what we do. It's just they may or may not have had an experience. It does not take 40 minutes to do an ROF.
If the first visit is done properly, the whole point is that they walk away with a wow experience. Wow, no one's ever done that with me. No one's ever said that to me.
Yep.
And so once you got them after that first visit, that doesn't take much after that to close, quote unquote, close them.
Right. So let's call the first PVA skill day 1, day 2.
Right. Including the report of findings as part of that day
100%.
Right?
Day 2, ROF, closing it, the care plan, the whole thing. What's the next PVA skill?
So then we want to go into patient education. So this is your day-to-day patient education, because you could do a really good close, have a great care plan, whatever it is, they sign on the dotted line, they're committed, they're all in. Well, we all know, I think a lot of us people will agree that when people are in a lot of pain, their value system is all about get me out of pain as fast as possible. But if you haven't done a good job educating them to the bigger picture of chiropractic care, when the pain goes away, we all know the patient has a tendency to go away. Or if they're on a care plan, right, but it's a lot of it insurance and the insurance runs out and they're starting to feel better, they start to slip. That's what we're trying to, to prevent. So by doing a really good patient education that follows up after the report of findings, to me is the key. When I talked about that continuum, it's meeting them where they are first, right? And then taking them along on a journey, visit by visit by visit, by patient by patient by patient. So every single patient, when I walk into a room from the day they start, every patient, every visit, we are educating them, building on a curriculum, right? To bring them along this continuum or this journey to ultimately choosing on their own volition, lifetime wellness or maintenance care, whatever you want to call it, I don't care, but they understand the importance of including chiropractic care in their everyday.
Right. So, and let me ask you this, and with this unrehearsed, if out of all of your patient education, all of your charts and your maps and your things and your PowerPoints and whatever, if you had to give the patient one piece of information that you want them to have or understand, what's the one key ingredient that they must know in order to choose chiropractic care in their life?
Understanding what a subluxation is and understanding the role of the nervous system, that the nervous system controls every single form, function in their body, its ability to heal itself. And when it's being interfered with, it cannot function at its optimum potential. And when they have a subluxation that interferes with it, and what we do is remove that interference, and your body can then function optimally, and they can understand that. Now, as long as they can spit that back to me, because we teach and test along the way, if they can spit that back in their own words, but they get the concept, those are the people that stick around for their lifetime.
And refer a bazillion others throughout their lifetime.
Yeah.
And I do want to say this as an aside. There are a lot of people watching right now that as soon as you use the S word, it turned them off. And as soon as we talked about our retention is 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 visits, it turned them off because that's not what they were taught in school.
Right.
And docs, Brett and I will stand from the top of the mountains and shout this. It doesn't matter where you went to school. That was their philosophy. But once you get out of school, you have to choose your philosophy. You have to choose what you believe. Because some of you went to school, that school beat you down on certain limitations, but yet you get adjusted every week of your life. Your kids get adjusted every week of their lives. Your spouse does, your family members do. So your maintenance is probably 40, 50 visits a year. And then you recommend 6 visits, 8 visits for a patient, or we'll do 3 times a week for 4 weeks, and then we'll reevaluate and see how it goes.
I think
so just understand that if you don't want to use the word subluxation, fine, we don't care, whatever. But we're talking about nervous system. They have to know about the nervous system or it's over.
I think a lot of the incongruencies for a lot of people in their mind is like the old, 70s, 80s definition of subluxation, foot on the hose or whatever the case might be. But if you look at the work, garden hose, but if you look at the work of Heidi Havoc, if you look at the work of Bardwell, right? Brain plasticity. And I don't want to get into all this stuff, but if you look at the work of Rob Malillo, what he's doing with ADHD and ADD and all these different things, and you start to see the more updated understanding, comprehension of what subluxation nerve interference is, and you can be able to teach that on a very basic level. It exists. The research is there.
Right. Well, Dan Sullivan was good with us. Yeah, Dan Sullivan at one of our last seminars. Dan Tom Clapp was on our thing talking about NBC, neurologically based chiropractic.
Absolutely.
Suffice it to say is if you want to have patient education, all the charts in the world and all the cute analogies that I'm the greatest analogy guy in the world. I freaking love analogies. I love it. It's my favorite thing in the world. A patient said to me today, he goes, well, you have a lot of analogies.
Right. But that's what makes you that's what makes you a great communicator.
But I'm finding
almost as good as
always bring them back to nerve. Always bring them back to nervous system.
Right.
That's the patient education story.
And just keep it simple. But again, you have to find a way of saying the same thing, repeated differently, different analogies, different metaphors, because everybody's going to get it differently, right? But if you know who they are, you know what their vocation is, you know how they function every day, then speak to them at their level in a way they can understand it, right? I have a dental hygienist that just came in the other day. We're talking about cavities all day long. Right. We're talking about the dentist analogy all day long. They get it, piece of cake. And then someone like an engineer comes in. I talk to them differently. So everybody's different. But like you said, analogies and metaphors are the key.
Yep. And, so now we get into the action steps where the staff really comes into play, because part of the patient education goes to the staff as well, yep. Which is, what if a patient calls and says, well, I feel better, I'm going to cancel, so that, some of those handle it type of issues. That goes in your staff training, but now it also comes into the other PVA skill, which after your re-exam, which I know you're going to talk about progress exams in a sec, is the recalls,
yep.
Which is another team staff-driven event. Yep. But if you take about these 4 PVA skills, each responsible for 25% of your PVA and your retention, yep. If your staff doesn't know how to do recalls effectively, 25% of your volume just walked out the door.
And by the way, if you master each recall properly, you can build your practice to a minimum of 50 PVA or higher. If you think about it.
And how about compared to now? We used to have people on the phones. Now you have texting. You have Review Wave. It does it for you.
Right.
You press a button, you set your parameters. It sends welcome letters on a certain visit. It sends patient education on a certain visit. If they haven't been there, it sees on your schedule, this patient hasn't been there in, 59 days. It sends them a letter. It sends them a text. It sends them an email.
And this is the stuff that, so during
what the technology does.
During our actual coaching, we break each one down.
Yeah.
Right into every single procedure and system that you need to master each skill. We're just giving the overview tonight. And for those of you who want to learn more about it or get coached or want to take their practice to the next level, call us. And this is what we break. This is what we do, right? But if you master all 4 PVA skills and you do a PVA skill, a PVA or a re-exam every 12 visits, right? But
you do your progress exam, right?
A progress exam, right? And it's done every 12 visits, and you master each one of these, you get your PVA to 50 or more, right? Because so that's how to do and what to say. Then you throw in the communication skills, rapport building, the philosophy and everything else. Then you can get up to, 60 and above, right? Which now you're starting to get into a real wellness and maintenance practice. It's better. By the way, that's once a month for 5 years.
So let's just do some simple numbers just so people can see the difference.
Yeah.
So let's say you get 20 new patients a month.
Yep.
And you have a 20 PVA.
Yep.
Right? So that means the patients come 20 times in their lifetime.
Yep.
20 times 20 is 400 visits a month. That's about 100 a week.
Right.
Let's say you collect $50 a visit. Let's say it's a cash practice or whatever your insurance is in your town. Ours is capitated at 45 a visit. I know you have certain limitations on insurances as well. So that means you're going to collect $20,000 a month. But now if you follow what Brett and I are doing at Chiro Destiny, you follow these things that we're talking about today, the headspace, the philosophy, and then the systems of the 4 PVA skills, and we can help you get it from a 20 PVA to a 40 PVA.
Or even take a 30 PVA.
Take a 30, that's fine.
Okay, so now you bring it up 10. That's
right.
Which is a lot, by the way, But
all I did was bring it up 10 more visits.
Right, and you keep the same number of new patients.
Right. Now you're at 600 visits a month, 150 a week.
Right.
And now you just collected another $10,000.
Right. A month.
Right. That's a $120,000 decision with no increase in overhead, no more marketing, no more Google AdWords and spending on ad spend on Facebook. All you did was do a better communication on day 1 and day 2, better training so the first visit experience is incredible. You educate them on the nervous system and why it's necessary to go through the phases of care. You just made $120,000 more just by bringing it up from 20 to a 30 PVA. That's half of mine and a third of Brett's.
Yep.
It's a third.
Yep.
And you just made $120,000 more in your pocket, doctor, just from doing this.
Right.
These are real numbers and real decisions that are not that difficult.
Exactly. So again, it comes down to the patient understanding what the 3 phases, the initial intensive care phase means and what's expected, what is corrective care, what is expected, and then again, this whole lifetime wellness or maintenance care. So important to break down that this whole thing revolves around that. And we talked about before, doing a re-exam, or I like to call them a progress exam every 12 visits. So it's, yeah, you do a quick, efficient re-exam, rescan. I think scanning subluxation station or whatever, I think is vitally important because that shows the function of the nervous system, going back to that, right? So if you don't have one, you want to look to get one, but that's part of it. And then most importantly is it's reconnecting the patient back to their purpose of being in your practice in the first place. And so
Kimberly put in, if you want to click on that link next to us, the
right, okay,
there's a link.
Right, she put a link in, right.
Right, and that link will go to our website. You can learn a little bit more about retention, and you could also set up to do a practice analysis. So we can help you with a free practice analysis. We can have ourselves or one of our coaches work with you. I mean, one of our coaches has a PVA that's like 140 or something insane.
Yeah, by the way, we can look at your stats, just so you know, and in less than 10 seconds, if you gave us the 6 numbers that make up your stats that we asked for, in about 10 seconds, I can look at your stats and tell you what you're good at and where your weaknesses are and what you need to focus on to improve your practice. And if you're willing to open up and get coached and be mentored, we can change your practice like that. It's just, once you make a shift in your head, the rest of it is easy. It's just a skill set you have to learn.
Right. So, docs, it's getting short on time.
Yep.
And we want to make sure that we're clear. We're in the trenches with you. We do it all day. And because the numbers that we're seeing, the volume that we see, the collections that we have, the staff retention that we have, the patient retention that we have, we know we can do it because we see it every day. We're not saying new patients aren't important, but that's not what builds huge practices. One without the other is totally useless. You're running around, you're going crazy in your neighborhood, in your community, you're going crazy on social media and all the stuff that goes with it, which is great, but it doesn't take the place of understanding what your vision is for your practice and then the proper techniques and technologies to actually turn that concept into what's actually happening. Because if you really looked at your numbers and you really looked at your PVA, you have let hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of new patients come in your door, get a couple of adjustments, feel a little better, and leave. And statistics show that once a patient leaves, less than 20% ever come back to you or any other chiropractor.
And in closing, what we focus on at Chiro Destiny is teaching you to communicate to your patients about the value of chiropractic care. One thing I know to be true, because I was forced into it being in New York, was that when I had to learn all these different skill sets and really understand chiropractic myself, and then be able to communicate the bigness of chiropractic, the importance of chiropractic, why it should be in every single person's life, right? So they can live their best life, hands down. When people understand the value, one thing I know to be true, it doesn't matter what the cost is, they will pay for their perception of that value. Your job is to create that value for them so they say, this makes sense and I want this in my life. And we understand that not every single patient is going to want what you have to offer. I don't get caught up in, listen, we're not saying you're going to convert 10 out of 10. My conversion rate, by the way, is about 90, 95%. That means for every 10 people that walk in my door for reported findings, I convert 9 or 9.5 on average to a year of corrective care leading up to wellness or maintenance care, right? That's pretty good, right? And that didn't happen overnight. It happened over time as I learned it, but we were forced to teach them because the insurances went away in New York. So they had to pay more and more cash. And I charge $60 a visit, about to go to $65. I don't care who you are. I don't care how old you are. We teach them the value. And I know through experience, going through it ourselves, that people will pay for value. Your job is to learn how to communicate that in such a way that people say, I want that, and you're the one I'm going to.
And we will spend a lot of the time getting you to understand the value of chiropractic first, right? Yes. Sometimes school knocked it out of you. Sometimes you found yourself in chiropractic. You don't even know how you got here. And a lot of us are not business people. We were science people. We loved helping people. We loved the science, anatomy, and physiology. And all of a sudden you realize 15% of what you do is clinical, 85% of what you do is the business stuff.
But this is why we created Chiro Destiny.
100%.
You and I said, 12 years ago, we had been coaching chiropractors in different programs, but you and I said, hey, there's too many chiropractors out there failing or not living up to their potential or struggling needlessly. We said, hey, let's develop a program that says, let's help these chiropractors create exactly what they want. They just need the skill set to do it. And that's what we've done. So if that's what you're looking for, you need help, or you don't want to be on an island by yourself. You want to be with a family of chiropractors who are successful, that are living this every day. Give us a call, reach out to us, check us out, and let us help you. And then that's what we do every single day, in addition to being in practice as well.
So again, it's Tuesday night. We're going to do it again next Tuesday night through the rest of the year. And there's a rumor, I'm going to try to get Brett to change it to Tuesday Day Live after January.
Okay, I can do that.
I know you start to get a little, you start to get nod off a little bit on me.
Long day.
But thank you again. Listen, this is the key. You want to grow. You want this. This is why all of our members are breaking their record during COVID, because they have the foundations of educated patients that will come out during a pandemic because they don't want to miss an adjustment. We can help you do the same. We love you guys. We'll see you again next Tuesday night.